Bricks and Minifigs has struck back as they've gone after Ben in a big way. We're to that today on The Legal Mind, so we teach you to be your own judge. I'm Andrew Esquire, American attorney, and we're going to jump right into this case, which is developing fast, even with the development happening just as I was about to record this video. So this is the latest and greatest. We're going day by day, giving you updates here as this case has been absolutely wild. First of all, he has an official case, right? The case is in court. It's in front of Judge Graff. You see there, Judge Tony F. Graff. Now, by all accounts, he's generally a very fair judge. He's presiding over the Robinson trial right now. Of course, he's not without flaws. Looking at his record, there's some cases where he seems to have made some decisions I wouldn't have made. But that's the thing about the law. You oftentimes, as a lawyer, you can disagree with a judge, sometimes even strongly disagree with a judge. But overall, you look at his track record for fairness and you say, is this a judge that is grossly biased in one way or has grossly bad outcomes? And Tony Graff, by all examinations, doesn't look like that. But once again, let's judge things as they go and let's see how this turns out, because we've got a temporary restraining order here that was entered into ex parte. Ex parte meaning without one of the parties there, Ben Schneider, was not able to give his side of the story, his picture, before this restraining order was granted. Now, under the Utah rules of civil procedure, typically these things have a limit of 14 days, these ex parte orders, till they're ruled upon. This one, we're looking at that one coming in on the 5th, with his hearing being on the 22nd. Now, what will happen in that hearing is we'll decide whether or not to make that preliminary injunction last even longer. And we're going to be getting into that with more detail. The other thing I want to point out here is they did deliver to the Schneiders by alternative service. So one of the things that they might have thought by, going abroad or by moving around or not being in Utah is that they would avoid service, meaning avoid being given the papers. Well, the judge said, you know what, we are going to allow service by email as sufficient for the purpose of this order. So they allowed that alternative service there through that process. Now we're going to get into what Ben thinks about that in just 1 second. But first, I have this important message. Recently, a jury ordered Meta and YouTube to pay millions for their role in designing and promoting addictive platforms. They knew their apps could contribute to anxiety, depression, and body image issues, but did not share those risks while prioritizing profits. The recent historic verdict underscores the consequences of those decisions. If you or your child spent years growing up on social media and experienced serious mental health struggles, you should hear this. Morgan & Morgan is stepping up to hold these platforms accountable for the harm they caused. You can use the link in my description or scan the QR code to take a short quiz to see if you qualify for a case. You may be entitled to a potential recovery of over $1,000. Okay, so let's hear what Ben has to say in this case after all of this went down with the restraining order, with the injunctive order.
Episode 3 is finally finished after crazy all-nighters and basically destroying my health. But I can't post it or I will go to jail. Not only that, I will also immediately lose my lawsuit of $300,000, and the GoFundMe we made for Brian will go straight to this mystery company that I am no longer allowed to talk about.
So this is something that I think I want to say I told you so. And Ben seems a little bit surprised about this, but this is something that if he was talking to a lawyer, actually talking to a lawyer, not just taking their emails, but really engaged a serious attorney who's experienced on this, not just trying to farm this for, engagement or whatever else. And this is where I'm giving Ben a little bit of pushback, because I know he's afraid of getting in there with attorneys, of actually engaging them, of actually hiring a real attorney that knows what he's talking about. But this is a stern talking to coming from a position where I generally support what Ben has been doing overall for the Mansells, saying that he needs to get serious because he seems surprised by this. If he was speaking to an attorney, he probably wouldn't be as surprised here, right? And I think this is something where he really needs to lock in, because what he's got coming up on the 22nd is a serious hearing. He needs to present his side of the story. The first side was ex parte. It was without his side of the story, but he needs an attorney who's experienced, maybe who has been before Judge Graff before, who's got a good case record. That is going to be very important for him to have in order to go and to win that order. He needs to win.
They sent court papers to my email, which I guess a judge approved for them that this was a valid form of service. And so now that I'm officially served, I cannot even mention this company or I will be in jail and everything. Normally I would be like, screw the big guy telling me what to do. I'm going to do what's morally right. But
and this is where I think, I see where his heart is. I see where he's coming from. I get him. I get Ben, right? He's trying to do the right thing, and he's probably a person that doesn't listen well to others when they tell him, hey, you shouldn't do that, or hey, you can't do that. But there's a point at which you actually have to stop and listen, right? And maybe in the past, he's been served on YouTube by pushing the limit, by pushing content a little bit further. I get that. I cover a lot of streamers that push the limit, but they end up in jail, right? I mean, look at Johnny Somali, right? You don't want to keep going and going and going past when other people tell you to stop. I think there are people out there giving Ben good advice. He's had a lot of people messaging him, a lot of people reaching out. And I know it's difficult, but he's actually got to listen in this case.
In this situation, if I do that, then all my friends get screwed with this lawsuit and we lose all the GoFundMe money we raised, like immediately. So I am no longer allowed to even mention this mystery company. My personal opinion is that this is unfair because this order was put on me because this company was telling the court that I was making bomb threats. I was planning on murdering the manager and employees, which obviously I didn't do, and you can see that in the footage.
And obviously that's the side of the story in the legal complaint from Bricks and Minifigs. So Bricks and Minifigs is definitely playing things up. It's definitely pushing things and pushing a narrative that is more than what is the facts here. So he does have a right here to defend himself, to speak, essentially. And what I believe, and I would make the argument in favor of Ben, right? So here is my argument, my pro-Ben argument, that they are stifling his First Amendment rights, his freedom of speech, that this injunctive order that says he can't talk about them at all, that he can't make YouTube content, he's completely silenced, is ridiculous. Think about putting that on the news. Think about putting that on any other person that's creating something that is in opposition to somebody. You can't say anything bad about them. That's stifling your freedom of speech, right? That's not permissible. Now, of course, there's things like defamation, which is accusing other people of crimes that are not permissible, but that's a whole different story. If the court wanted to limit the scope and said, hey, you cannot say these specific defamatory things, that's a lot different than saying you can't mention their name at all. That is, in my opinion, too broad. That's the argument I would make on his behalf, or I think his lawyer should make on his behalf, is that this is indeed overly broad and is stifling of his First Amendment rights. And I think that is a very strong argument. And I think his feelings here are indeed valid.
The only problem is I was not given a chance to share my side. The court just heard their perspective, not mine. So because I wasn't able to share my side, I am now no longer allowed to talk about them. And looks like this might be it.
So I think that ending there is a little bit hamming it up. I mean, he's not going to the gulag. He's not going to Siberia, right? He's going to a hearing on the 22nd. Okay. So he's not going to jail, right, guy people? He's not going to be hauled off in irons. He's going to a hearing on a protective order that is on the 22nd of June, right? So that is what's going to actually happen then. Now, it's very important that he wins that. I think he needs to fight that as hard as he can, but that's what's coming up. And in a way, Bricks and Minifigs does strike back, get that victory, that little Hoth strike back there. They get that with this victory with the protective order. So let's move on. There's a little bit more to talk about here. So we also had a lot of drama regarding the GoFundMe. So at first, GoFundMe actually folded. They actually ended up caving in and giving up and saying, we're taking this down. Now, for those that have not been around the internet for a while and followed legal defense funds like we have, covering many, many controversial cases, as I have on my channel for a very, very long time. And by the way, if you like the channel, be sure to like and subscribe. But in this case, GoFundMe is doing something they've done time and time again with others on the internet, that is with Sargon, that is with plenty of other controversial people and controversial cases. Anytime it requires them to have a spine, a GoFundMe will essentially fold when it comes to legal defense. The thing is, their terms of service say that they're really only taking down, they're supposed to only take down things for serious crimes. We're talking felonies here. So, if something is a felony level crime, we're going to go take this down. Well, in this case, there's nothing but misdemeanors. So there was no reason under their own terms of service, if you read their own terms of service, for them to actually go and take this down. This is something they should not have taken down in the first place. And this actually probably was pushed back by people like you guys at home who are liking these videos, following, commenting, replying on YouTube, Instagram. All of that helps. Social media is definitely helping on this one, because as soon as there was a other legal defense fund formed here by actual justice warrior Sean Fitzgerald, who started one on competitor Give, Send, Go, who went out on Give, Send, Go and actually started a competitor. I think what happened is the internal PR people, and we'll talk about what happened there at Bricks and Minifigs with some of their internal stuff in a second. But the people at GoFundMe panicked, seeing Give, Send, Go, a competitor up. And what they ended up doing was saying, hey, no, we've got to put this back. So actually, I pulled this up just as I was about to record this at 8:22. That's Asia time. So flip it for America. It's 8:22 a.m. over there in the U.S. They flipped that back and they put it up again. So they permitted once again the GoFundMe, which is at 456K out of 500K. Now, I still think there's a use in an alternative legal defense fund. Actual Justice Warrior Sean Fitzgerald reached out to me trying to get in contact with Ben. So Ben, if you're out there watching, please get in contact with him on what to do with that legal defense fund. You need to actually be talking to people that are trying to help you and trying to coordinate these things. So, hey, Ben, go reach out to him. But these things, these campaigns on social media are clearly working. They're influencing companies. Patreon CEO made a statement.
My name is Jack Conti, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Patreon. So after an extensive review and investigation, we have in fact, unfortunately determined that Bricks and Minifigs can stuff it. We're keeping Ben's page up. And if Bricks and Minifigs doesn't like that, they can sue us.
So by these folks actually getting online, being active, pushing these things, retweeting this is working. And you guys at home should know, do not give up. Despite the fact that Ben cannot speak, that doesn't mean that all of you out there cannot speak as well. It doesn't mean that other channels like myself and like others, people reacting to my channels, my content, are not going to be pushing back against this, as they absolutely 100% should. Okay. Another fun fact we found out here was Bricks and Minifigs lead. Now, this is a fun one, and a hat tip to the humble fruit farmers out there that found this one. But this is from the marketing director of Bricks and Minifigs, and you can find down here, in 2026, I was appointed incident commander during a national reputational crisis, coordinating executive leadership, legal counsel, franchise relations, public relations, customer communications, and digital reputation management efforts across the organization. So clearly, we have here someone that has been put on the Bricks and Minifigs, the Reckless Ben case. So we see who that is. It's lovely here, Caitlin Fagan, MBA. Now, I love her title here. Marketing Director, Deputational Head, Brand Content SEO Expert, Small Business Owner, Chronic Overachiever. She went to Brigham Young, like many people, Marriott School of Business, Bricks and Minifigs official. So you see, that's her LinkedIn profile right there. Now, I want to say, as corporate counsel, as the heartless lawyer who was brought in to say the heartless things that other people cannot say, right? As a many-year corporate attorney, bless her heart, but this is not the person that you want to be doing this exclusively here. It looks like her experience, looking at what she's doing, she's making contests for Lego McClocks, right? Just giveaways, doing marketing stuff. Her background appears to be in just general marketing, not in something that's high level crisis management. You're going to want a big company like 5PWR or the PH Group out of the UK. They're better for the UK. 5PWR is better for the US. So those are high-end PR companies, essentially, that large corporations can bring in crises. So you're going to want to bring in somebody external. Now, I have not heard any statement that from any external PR firm, saying they're working with them, or know otherwise that they're working with an external PR firm. They could be, that I don't know of, or we don't know of. But you certainly don't want to put everything on poor Caitlin here. That's not fair to her, and she's probably not qualified to be handling this alone by herself without some external support. So that's something that I just wanted to put out there. Hopefully they're paying for that. And what I'm getting to here is the price that they are going to be paying for this, not just in the overtime for poor Caitlin here, but in the external firm. It's going to be in the numbers far above hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? This is going to cost them a lot of money, right? And this is something that they've got to do because now the algorithm is taken over with this. And, even if you've got one really hard worker on your team, she's not going to be able to carpet bomb the PR on this and kind of make this thing spin around. That's not something that one individual inside, even if she's a really hard worker, is going to be able to do by herself, right? So let's go to my judgment here. So in my judgment, Ben needs to stay calm, listen to counsel, and obey the judge for now. So I am not at all encouraging him to violate the, and I would never do that, to say, just, okay, screw the judge, do whatever you want, just ride off in the sunset. We're not doing that. We're not going to crazy town on that one, okay? Obey the judge for now, listen to the order, do what it says, and prepare for the hearing. Come with your best case to that hearing. Be prepared. Hire a competent attorney. There's lots of very good, very passionate attorneys out there. Look for their history in that court, maybe their history with Judge Graff, their track record, not just what they're saying, not just because they're your bro, but actually because they've got the skills to do this. Also, with social media pressure, that is going to be key to fighting back against Bricks and Minifigs, as well as unjust corporate actions. Corporations are still very susceptible to the public opinion, to PR, to things that are trending on X, YouTube, Instagram, etc. So continuing to stay on this, continuing to expose this, continuing to share these videos, again, get this information out there is key. I know not everybody watches YouTube. So by the way, anybody who wants to clip my content, take it out there, put it on Instagram, TikTok, whatever, on Bricks and Minifigs, I bless you to do that. You are free to do that and get the word out there so that more people know about this. The upcoming hearing is on June 22nd, where Ben gets to present his side. So we'll very much be looking forward to that. And I'm going to be looking to get more information on that hearing so that I can provide that to you guys in the best way possible. I want to know what you guys think, though, in the comments below, and I will catch you on the next one.